New Zealand hadn't won a game in the Pro League yet, and they were leading this game. So we've got a bit of a melting pot and a bit of a volcano about to happen. So when you talk about emotions and empathy, knowing what's going on here, the Spanish are really, really hard to manage at the best of times. This got a really awkward game. So during Corona, it was about an hour and a half session where we went through a whole game and reviewed it, everything, and people would have a chat. This is a little clip out of some of what went on during the game. They put on a clip.
Here we go. I'm going to show this again because this was a really, really solid call.
Just trying to force it.
You banged the ball right away.
Body language, I'm not real happy with it. Try and lay down the water a bit.
Look at the replay.
Lip service there from Mick Ross, which is back for
Actually, that left leg.
yeah, so it's really subtle, but he brings it back as the Spanish guy is trying to get around him, stops him running into the circle. So that movement right there, and it's really, really subtle, but these boys are pretty good, they know exactly what they're doing. And like, I know, your description of me, I don't put up with a lot of crap, and sometimes I've got to get that balance right. But a lot of people go, he hasn't moved it deliberately there. I just didn't want that rubber band in the game to really stretch out, so I wanted to really put a mark down. And yeah, it's a big ball, it's a penalty point, what are we, 1-0 in the game still? And then he's come to me afterwards and tried out a bit of, what do you think about this? And I haven't really put up with much, so I've laid down the law of shit.
I should say that we get back to you, you can have an argument.
You're in no position to come and have an argument. You've just got a corner against you. Go and start getting ready, basically. Yeah. So I guess that's not too much. And I guess just keeping in mind, is that the right approach or not? And I think one thing when we talk to umpires, doing what comes from within and being yourself is important. So if you're a guy who doesn't, like I'm not a small guy, so if you're a really small guy and trying to rouse some guys, that might not work for you. You know, I can get away with it. And also, keep in mind, if you're if I'm the first year in my international career and I go and do that, they're probably going to laugh at me. But I've got their respect, they know who I am, they know my personality, so I can go and do that now, and that's something that's involved in my personality and umpiring character.
So, I've touched on a few things there, guys. Obviously, I like Speedway. So, hopefully I can get this back working again. I did turn it last time, didn't I? One sec, guys. So, what are some of the things I touched on there in that video that I hadn't spoken about yet today?
Position the field where you're going to call it to.
Yeah. Okay. What about style? Did I talk about style at all, you guys?
So what their usual tricks that they get up to?
Yeah. And being aware of what they're doing. Something else I talked about there.
Being confident in the decision that you make.
Yeah.
Line it feels right.
Yeah. So what comes from within? But also when I'm talking about style, so if you go and try and umpire exactly the way I do, will that work for you? No. So we actually encourage people to have their own personality. So we talked a little bit before here about control measures and what works for you as a style. I don't expect anyone in club hockey at regional level to go, right, polished up and all this sort of stuff, but it's got to come from within. If you don't try and do something as an umpire that feels really fake, players are like animals, they tend to sense it. So you've got to find an approach that works for you, is what I'm talking about here. Going, okay, if you're happy having a chat and talking to guys, great. But I encourage everyone, like if you want to go anywhere umpiring, I'll talk a bit more tomorrow about that, but you go and pick different umpires and go, I like what that guy does or that lady does. I like that style and those things. And you'll take a piece from there, you're going to take a piece from there. I might take stuff from rugby union umpires. But naturally you see different things and you go, okay, that works for me. If you try and do what I do, if you're the same size as me, yeah, great, that style might work, but you might be a different personality. So some of those sort of things come to play a lot. I talked a little bit in that little clip about this was really early in the game. I wanted to draw a line in the sand as far as a management tool going, okay, I want to go that do you let that go on for the first 15, 20 minutes to the point where it now becomes a yellow card, or you go, right, really early in the game, I'm going to blow a really loud whistle, I'm going to stop the play and go, I'm not going to accept any more of that. I'm drawing a line in the sand to manage the game. And that way, when later on the guy goes and has a chat, well, wait a minute, I've already spoken to you, I've got no complaints when I'm given a card. You've already had a warning, I've drawn a line in the sand. The same as when, if you have a really bad tackle, I'm giving a really loud whistle and everyone knows, I've communicated to everyone. Then the next one that happens, I've gone, well, wait a minute, there's a breakdown here, I've communicated. Okay, you've already had a chance, I'm now moving up a level on my tools. Does that make sense, guys, about setting standards in game management? So a lot of what I talked about with the younger guys is how do we make life easy for ourselves as umpires. So some of this game management stuff and setting a standard early and communicating to players. One gets a lot more trust and respect. I'm showing a bit of empathy. I'm not just going to get off the field, but I'm communicating to a standard that later on when I go to the next level, there's no questions about it. Or we've drawn a line in the sand and the players will listen to us, and now we worry about playing hockey and not looking at each other.
So at the coin toss,
Yep.
I suppose that's, and you're going to tell me in writing stuff, but I suppose that's an opportunity to talk to the captains before you get going, really, about a couple of things, isn't it? If you have
It is. So one thing to think about here is when I go to a tournament, everyone's here for a really short period and we're setting a big standard. Normally we've had a league briefing, everyone knows this. When you go on a week in, week out hockey, I might have just played them last week. The situation changes a little bit. If you got someone, a captain where you had trouble with last week, you might have a joke, hey, we're going to work together today and have a good game. It's a different approach, but you've still got an opportunity there where I talked earlier about having a relationship, going, okay, how do we approach this? And touch a little bit, have a think before the game, how you want to approach a game, and we're going into someone we've had trouble with before. What do these players do? When you're playing a game, what do you think about the night before? Hopefully you think about the game. What sort of things do you think about, guys?
who you might be coming up against, who the captain might be the opposite team.
If I'm a defender and I'm playing against a really good striker that scored 5 goals last night, how am I going to approach that? Umpiring's no different. I'll skip forward a little bit, but if we look at it here, so that there, I know it's really small, quite intentional. These are some of the key things that we think about before I prepare. So a little bit like if you're a player, I go, right, I'm going to work on my distribution and how I'm getting the ball out of the fence. I'm going to work on my tackling, I'm going to start my feet today. As an umpire, I might go, what's my technical, what's my management, all the things we're talking about here today. The physical stuff, how's my fitness going, preparing for a tournament. And then I'll open up a doc if it works. So then, like at a World Cup, I don't expect anyone to go to this level of detail, not by any means. But the message here is, let's do it to me again. There we go. So this document here was our preparation before the World Cup, or during the World Cup for each game. So that one there, slide up a tiny bit. So the stuff on the first column is what I was thinking about during the game and then after the game and some of the different areas. This is a really big game. It's Germany versus Holland. I've got the World Cup final on there too, but what I'm trying to tell you guys is when you walk on the field, just have a little bit of a think about what's likely to happen today, what style of teams there are, if there's any awkward plays. Just give it a couple of minutes to think about it so you're a little bit mentally prepared. We don't walk on the field before a game without thinking about a game. When you're umpiring, it's no different. I don't expect you to write a whole document or something like that. Not many of the international guys even do this. But the message is have a think and have a strategy. If you've got a play you've had trouble with, okay, how am I going to approach it today? There used to be a guy on Brizzy that we really good player, but like this, I had to really think about how I was going to approach him. So I didn't end up just getting angry and setting him off every week. Just have a little bit of a think, okay, what am I trying to do? It's no different from a player, go, right, there's 3 things I want to work on today. If I go out, go, right, I want to get a pound of corners, a presentation, everything Kearns talked about today right in one game. It's never going to happen. I didn't get to this level in one day. Work on one thing, get that right. Work on the next thing a week or two later, get that right. Build yourself, build your confidence. skills that you can use elsewhere. I find in business it's a huge amount of stuff I've learned umpiring, how to manage players, how to manage conflict, and you learn a lot about yourself. I talked about styles before, and what works for you, and knowing what comes from within naturally. So it makes you think about yourself a little bit too.
If you've got a player that you know is going to carry on through the game, would you say something about before the game or like at the start, or that encourage you a bit more?
Pick your player. Do you have a relationship with the guy? Is it the sort of guy you ever want to have a relationship with?
No.
Okay, so if it's not, talk about drawing a line in the sand. You don't have to become mates, but there's plenty of guys we do business with that you do good business with. So you got to draw the line in the sand and go, okay, what am I going to accept today? And jump in. I go, that's not okay. And the one thing I'd say here is you try and take as much emotion out of it as you can. So for me, my Achilles heel is not if I get angry, which can happen quite easily, it doesn't work well as an umpire. If I'm out there calm and controlled, I'm giving a card and I go, mate, it's a tackle over there, I'm pretty cool about it. He can be as angry as he wants, but it pulls that emotion down, and I'm just giving a decision because my role here, when I talk about the kids, our role is to make decisions and control and keep the game safe. So you take all that emotion out of it, mate, there's a crap tackle, you're off. The more you heighten it, the more they'll talk to it. One of my great mentors, Don Pryor, my very first test match was India versus Pakistan. And I was literally, I was terrified. They fed me a lot of Indian the night before, which I'd never eaten. Didn't help. But what he said to me is, if they get all angry, talk really quietly. I've still got it in the middle of the night. Why? Because if you talk quietly, players have to calm down and listen to you. And what I'm trying to give you here is tools of how do you take some of the heat and the emotion out. We're just doing a job here. Not because you don't like the way I look or anything. My role here is to umpire and keep the game safe. And if you try and pull that emotion out, that's hard to do at times. One of the really good things, going off the sidetrack, is probably really useful. If I stand here and I'm giving decisions, great, I'm in good position, I give a really big decision, particularly a penalty corner. So, penalty corner, we're normally over here. One thing I see a lot of umpires do, they give a big penalty corner, they wander over here and you've got a 10